Something truly astonishing has been found about Jesus. What seemed like just another ancient document has revealed surprising details about him, leaving everyone stunned. Claudia Procula, the wife of Pontius Pilate, shared something few have dared to discuss. Her account of Jesus Christ is remarkably detailed and could change what we know about history forever. Before we dive into this revelation, make sure to subscribe below so you don't miss any of the important videos we're preparing just for you. Claudia Procula is a lesser-known figure in history. She was the wife of Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea, and lived during the events that shaped history. Although she remained in the background, Claudia witnessed these events closely, offering a unique perspective. But who exactly was this woman, so near to the trial and death of Jesus? And what secret did she hold that could change everything? Known for her quiet beauty and Roman heritage, Claudia moved to Jerusalem with Pilate when he became governor of the province. While Pilate dealt with the intense political and religious challenges of the time, Claudia led a reserved life. However, as the wife of a powerful man, she had access to private conversations and insights that others could only dream of. Over time, Jesus became an unavoidable presence in her life, though she didn't realize it at first. Unlike many Roman nobles who dismissed Jesus as a myth, Claudia was deeply moved by the stories she heard. Every mention of his miracles and teachings sparked her curiosity and left her unsettled. The power of Jesus' words and his growing influence among the people created a feeling within Claudia that she couldn't explain. Like many of her time, she struggled between the values of her Roman upbringing and the mystery of the man from Nazareth. Claudia shared with Pilate everything she had seen in her dream, explaining how deeply it had shaken her soul. She told him it wasn't just a political or religious matter, it was something spiritual, something far greater than Rome's power or laws. Her dream left her with a sense of anguish she couldn't ignore. But Pilate, being skeptical and practical, dismissed her concerns. To him, the dream was just a coincidence, disturbing perhaps, but ultimately meaningless. He tried to comfort her with indifferent words, but Claudia could see he wasn't listening. She was consumed by a helpless feeling, fearing that if Jesus were condemned, something terrible would happen. She felt powerless, knowing she had done all she could to stop the tragedy, yet it seemed inevitable. This realization haunted her like a never-ending nightmare. Despite her fear, Claudia wrestled with a painful choice. Should she confront Pilate again, even if it risked her position and her husband's respect? The next morning, still shaken, Claudia gathered her courage and went to Pilate. Pale and anguished, she spoke with quiet but determined words. She pleaded with him, saying Jesus was innocent and that this was not about politics or power but something far greater. She begged Pilate not to let Rome be responsible for condemning such a pure and unique man. But Pilate, unmoved, coldly dismissed her as being caught up in baseless superstition. Pontius Pilate found himself in a situation that challenged his judgment and sense of logic. He listened to reports, faced pressure from the people, and felt the heavy demands of religious leaders. As the governor, he knew he had to make firm decisions. The Roman Empire could not show any weakness, especially when dealing with someone many saw as a threat. Claudia, Pilate's wife, saw the hardness in his eyes, the resolve he needed to maintain authority. Yet, she made one last attempt to persuade him. She begged him to reflect before making his final decision, but Pilate remained determined. Claudia realized she had done all she could, but her words could not pierce through the weight of his responsibility. As the day of Jesus' trial approached, Claudia felt a sense of doom. The city of Jerusalem was tense, filled with shouts and agitation. From the palace, she could hear the crowd gathering, their voices growing louder and more anxious. Claudia watched, her heart heavy, as Pilate prepared for the trial. She knew he hated being manipulated, but also understood the intense pressure to calm the crowd and avoid chaos. Pilate's face showed the strain of his responsibility. During the trial, Claudia's anxiety grew. She overheard the accusations, Jesus' miracles, criticisms of Roman authority, and claims of blasphemy. Claudia was devastated by the reports of soldiers mocking him, placing a crown of thorns on his head, and treating him like a dangerous criminal. She couldn't understand how someone who preached peace and compassion could be met with such cruelty. Her sense of guilt and powerlessness deepened as the day went on, and the weight of the tragedy seemed unbearable. Despite her anguish, Claudia felt drawn to Jesus' suffering. It was as if his pain was part of something far greater than she could comprehend. She was torn between her fear and an unshakable reverence for the man she had tried to save. Claudia realized she could do nothing to change his fate. She was just a powerless witness to an event that would forever change her life and the world around her. At that moment, Claudia Procula's life changed forever. She had always avoided getting involved in her husband's decisions, but when her eyes met Jesus' gaze, something inside her shifted. There was something extraordinary about him, his calm and profound expression, even amidst suffering. His gaze felt like it reached beyond the surface, touching her soul in a way she couldn't explain. In those brief seconds, Claudia saw strength and compassion in Jesus' eyes, unlike anything she had ever seen. His look held a mystery beyond human understanding, something that brought both hope and fear. That moment stayed with her, haunting her thoughts. She couldn't forget the intensity of his gaze, which seemed to follow her everywhere, as if he knew what was to come and had accepted it with a peace that was beyond comprehension. On the day of the crucifixion, Claudia was consumed by despair. She felt a suffocating anguish as Jesus carried his cross to Golgotha. Though she couldn't bring herself to watch, she couldn't stop imagining his suffering, the falls, the blows, the pain. Each detail weighed heavily on her heart. Alone in the palace, she prayed and struggled to calm her sorrow. When she learned Jesus had been raised on the cross, tears flowed. Though Claudia didn't fully understand who Jesus was, she knew he carried a purpose that no one else could. His death wasn't just the loss of an innocent man, it felt like the loss of hope itself. That day marked her forever, leaving her with a memory of his gaze and the light he brought into the world. When Claudia first saw Jesus, she noticed how ordinary he looked. His sun-kissed skin and humble appearance reflected a life of labor and simplicity. Yet, his presence stood out. His deep brown eyes carried wisdom and compassion, as though he could see into her very soul. Looking into them felt like diving into an ocean of emotions. Jesus' hair was dark, wavy, and wind-tousled, framing his face naturally. He had no signs of vanity, just an honest, rugged appearance. His face, marked by peace and resilience, radiated humility. Unlike the commanding presence of Roman leaders, Jesus' welcoming expression made him approachable. Claudia realized his power wasn't in outward beauty but in the calm, compassionate presence he carried, a presence that would stay with her forever. Claudia's heart was filled with mixed emotions as she watched Jesus during his trial. To her, he was more than just a man of his time and culture. His simplicity and the details of his appearance stayed etched in her memory. Though the world saw him as an ordinary man, Claudia felt he had an extraordinary essence and mission. As the trial unfolded, the scene was chaotic. Jesus stood accused by religious leaders and authorities of blasphemy and rebellion. Yet, what struck Claudia most was his calmness. While others shouted and gestured, Jesus remained silent, as though he understood that this was part of a greater plan. Pilate, Claudia's husband, struggled with the pressure from the crowd and the Jewish leaders. Although he was used to making tough decisions, something about Jesus deeply affected him. Claudia could see the conflict in his eyes. Jesus, on the other hand, did not defend himself or fight back. His quiet acceptance was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was as if he already knew his fate. When the crowd demanded Jesus be crucified, Claudia felt an overwhelming sadness. She wanted to stop it, but couldn't. The image of Jesus standing silently stayed in her mind, and his peace in the face of such injustice made her question everything she believed about power and justice. Later, when Jesus was crucified at Golgotha, Claudia was overcome with despair. Though she wasn't at the site, she felt the pain as if she were there. The brutality shocked her. How could someone who taught love and peace be treated so cruelly? The image of Jesus' calm face during the trial clashed with the thought of his suffering on the cross. Claudia prayed to the Roman gods for understanding, but no answers came. As the sky darkened and the earth trembled, she felt it was a sign that something monumental had happened. This wasn't just the death of a man, it was the beginning of something greater. She withdrew in silence, feeling deeply changed. Days later, rumors spread that Jesus had risen from the dead. At first, Claudia didn't believe it, thinking it was wishful thinking from his followers. But as reports grew stronger, even from Roman soldiers who had guarded his tomb, she began to wonder. How could a man who had died return to life? The news shook Claudia to her core. She remembered the feeling she'd had during the trial, that Jesus was unlike anyone else. Now she felt certain that she had witnessed something sacred, something beyond human understanding. His resurrection seemed to prove that everything he taught about love and peace was true. From that moment, Claudia felt transformed. Her faith and perspective on life were forever changed.